Hey there guys, and welcome to another FPV guide video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new benchmark in cinematography aerial drones, or basically a flying cinema camera. I'm Bo Lorentzen, the FPV guy of course, and I'm going to be telling you about the basic features of this. I don't unfortunately today have enough time to do a complete unbox, but I've already flown it and I gotta tell you guys, just get one. Before we get into this, let's take a look at the overall shape here with the big beefy batteries down here, and we have the cinema camera down here. You guys who have seen an Inspire before, you know this looks just like an Inspire, but you have to realize it's not an Inspire, it's not your grandpa's Inspire, because this is beefy. They beefed up the arm strength, much thicker, the motors are enormous. And what they really did was they built a brand new aircraft from scratch with a whole new camera down here, a whole new flight controller. So it's nothing like the old one. They look alike. Take a look at these motors here. They're enormous. They're almost twice the diameter of the Inspire 1 motors. I don't know what the actual kV is, but let me tell you, it's big. And just when you punch out on this thing, it just starts going. Up on top here we have the usual quick release. You just kind of literally twist it, pop off the prop, put the prop back down. I don't think I can do that one-handed, but you then turn around and you twist it. I did that one-handed. The prop is locked back down and ready to fly. Standing here talking to you about this, the other thing I'm noticing, this is a lot heavier, like a whole lot heavier. Looking at the camera up on the front here, we have the Micro Four Thirds camera. There's also the X4S option, which is a one single unit camera. It is also a 1-inch sensor, so you get an incredibly high resolution and a super large dynamic range. Today we were doing dynamics range testing on this camera, so I'm going to come back to that towards the end of the video. But the bottom line is, you've got tons of resolution, tons of actual sharpness, and tons of dynamic range here. So you're basically looking at the equivalent of any really good Micro Four Thirds with the ability to record DNG raw JPEGs, but more important than the JPEGs, you can also record CineDNG and Apple ProRes directly into this thing. And that is where this camera really changes and where you realize the difference between the old Inspire and the new one. Because half of the camera sits right inside here in this big box. That is actually the camera. So the nose of this aircraft is the camera. The part that sits down here, that is just the camera head, or the actual sensor. You can see how small that is. It then brings the signal up to here, and the signal processing is happening inside the aircraft. And I know a ton of you guys have already emailed me and told me, why didn't they maintain it so we could use this on the old Inspire 1? Guys, there is no way on earth they could have done that, because you needed a shoebox size video processor up here. Now, the one we're flying today, we're actually using a microSD camera, and that's because we don't have the SSDs that goes in the behind of this yet. Once we get that, we'll be able to show you Cine, DNG, and ProRes. That will be coming up some other good day. I mentioned before how heavy this thing is. I'm standing here holding it in one hand. I gotta tell you, this thing is heavy. It feels a lot heavier than my Inspire Pro because it's just built heftier, a lot heftier. This is not the same aircraft. A lot of you guys have been mentioning the batteries, and you're not too keen on the idea that they put 2 batteries on here. But I'm going to tell you why. It's heavier, it's burning a ton of energy, and it's flying longer than the original Inspire 1. Basically, these ones are 98 watt-hours. That basically means as much power as you can legally carry on an airplane. So, having 2 of those in one, you wouldn't have been able to easily travel with it. Instead, having 2 of them both let you travel easily, but it also gives you power redundancy, because the unit is capable of flying with just 1 battery. Except DJI won't let you take off with 1 battery. But if one dies, you can still land, and you have got 10-15 minutes left to land safely. That should be enough to get you safe on the ground. Now, the way they work, there's a confirming button up here. See how the one button is way down and the other one is up. If I push this in, it pops up. You can take the next battery here, push it in, and it clicks right up there. It's exactly like a gun magazine. Taking them back off, you push both of these down, and they pop out spring-loaded right out in your hand like this. Incredibly slick. And I gotta tell you, I love the way this looks. It still has the iconic look of the Inspire, but it's a brand new aircraft. And it looks like a whole new design team. But I really admire what DJI is doing with their design here, because the Phantom has not changed look. And every time I fly something that has 4 propellers, people look at me and go, oh, is that Phantom? And now they have managed to do the same thing here. It's a whole new aircraft, but everybody that has ever seen an Inspire will know exactly what this is. Now that's called really good design, because the brand image has been maintained in this aircraft. Now we still have the arms, the articulated arms, that then comes up once you're in flight. And as you know, DJI has been playing with slightly angled motors forever, ever since the S800 basically. And they're still doing this. Once you come up, you get a little bit of angle, but I gotta tell you, flying this full throttle and then hitting the brakes, this thing was sat like this for like 30 seconds before it completely stopped. At least it felt like that. It's working. So whatever they're doing with these odd angles, thumbs up. Incredibly stable. Really quickly, I should hurry up and say there's no more plastic on here. These joints now are actually magnesium, and also the motor mount sections up here is magnesiums. And I'm thinking the legs as well. They completely changed the damper setup, which I kind of like the look of the old one, but hey, who am I to argue? It's the best flying camera in the world, so I do like it. The camera guy never really pay attention, but for us pilots, it's annoying when the camera guy starts panning. And DJI have listened, because I'm sure, like me, at some point in time you have glued a camera on the front so that you could fly goggles or see your direction while you're out on a long shot. Now DJI has an actual Fpv camera up here, and notice what it has. It has roll stabilization and pitch stabilization. What that means is, and interestingly, when the aircraft rolls, it does maintain that. It just dampens out the little jitter, so you get a nice solid FPV or pilot image out of this camera. Fantastic feature. The other major improvement is we've got an obstacle sensor on right here. And I'm gonna confess to you, I did crash my Inspire 1. I had it out on like 200 yards out. I was flying over some cactus, and I figured once I get over that cactus, I'm gonna dip down and just follow the trail home. And I was flying line of sight. So I got over the cactus, I dipped down, and I realized I was behind the cactus. So seconds later, I was part of the cactus. This system would have saved my tail, because basically it's a forward-looking obstacle avoidance system. It would have seen the cactus, it would have stopped the aircraft, and all I would have had to do would have been throttle up and keep flying. So, guys, this, as crazy as it sounds, having forward-looking obstacle avoidance is a major feature. Now, they also put an obstacle avoidance on the roof or up on the top. So there's 2 sensors on the top that permits you to fly indoors without risk of gluing the aircraft to the ceiling. Because if you've ever seen a multicopter stuck on the ceiling, it's almost 100% sure to crash when you get it off that ceiling. Major feature. And of course we also have the feature that was kind of on the Inspire 1, but now there's 2 down-facing cameras and the ultrasound. Now the Inspire 1 had down-facing sensors to keep it in place, but just yesterday I flew a couple of batteries with the Inspire 1 so that I would kind of remember the feeling, and then I flew this morning. I gotta tell you, the Inspire is loose by comparison. It's a great aircraft, we all know that, and 2 years ago it was the state of the art in the industry, but today this thing is tighter. I can't really explain it. It just feels like it's not as laggy. There's more control. When I start moving the stick, I immediately feel the aircraft is doing what I'm trying to do. Not me moving the stick and the aircraft kind of following me around. To wrap up this walkthrough, let me try to boil down what you're really getting here. For this amount of money, you're getting a cinema-grade camera, and if you use the SSD, you're able to record an astonishing 4.2 gigabytes per second. Basically, that would be 4 seconds to your average 16 gigabyte memory card. so that's why you can't record this quality to a memory card. Basically, it's impossible to record real RAW to an SD card. You have to have an SSD storage brick pushed into the back of this thing. And even if you don't buy those features when you first pick it up, you can go out and buy the SSD after the fact, and now you have a camera that's capable of recording RAW video in 5.2K. 5.2K is an enormous amount of resolution. It's 5,200 pixels by almost 3,000 pixels, which, by the way, will get you about 2,000 lines of resolution. Let that sink in. Now getting back to 4K. We can record 4K in RAW again. However, you can also record 4K or 1080 or 720 to the microSD. That's because the compressed 4K comes down to about 100 megabytes per second. So what are you looking at to get into this? It's about $3,000 for the aircraft. Now the standard camera, the X4S, is about $500, and the camera here for entry level would be $1,500 without a lens. If you had a lens, you had $300 more, so it's still a great deal if you don't have Micro Four Thirds lenses. Importantly, this camera you can use a fisheye, or you can go all the way up to 45 millimeter, which in full frame would be about a 90 millimeter lens. That is worth something because you can get some really nice compressed views of mountainscapes or any other scape you want to compress the components of. Now, so as I said, so to getting the standard camera plus the aircraft, the minimum buy-in is about $3,500. And you're looking at about $4,500 to get the naked Micro Four Thirds camera if you have a Micro Four Thirds lens already. But where else can you, for $4,500, get a camera that's capable of recording 4.2 gigabytes per second raw video files? Guys, it's a big aircraft, and it's definitely not for everybody. But if you are shooting anything cine, or if you're doing indie productions, this is your baby right here. You can get into it shooting on microSD, and then go buy yourself a couple of big storage systems once you need the higher resolution and dynamic range. We're going to be doing more of this, so stay tuned. Click down the corner here and make sure to subscribe. And thank you for watching.